By the way.
Good morning and welcome to Worldwide Wisdom. Welcome to Worldwide Wisdom. We are live today, just hours before the Festival of Sukkot, which is an exhausting experience. You know, whoever set up these Jewish holidays, let me tell you, I wish I could have a seat in this cabinet to be able to, give some best practices. They give us Rosh Hashanah. Okay, fine, we're good. We're Rosh Hashanah. We got 30 days to prepare for Rosh Hashanah. We got the shofar preparations, fantastic. Then you got a whole 7 days to prepare for Yom Kippur. Okay, I can handle this. Yom Kippur, we're getting ready. Got it. But then, the moment Yom Kippur is over, sledgehammers, saws, pruning hooks, automatic, and you only have 3 days. 4 days. You got 4 days to become. Toby walks into shul here fully sunburned yesterday. What did he do? He built a sukkah, right? You have to build a sukkah. You got to start schlepping. You got to schlep this stuff in the back of the garage. You got to bring it to the right place. Okay, now by the time you schlepped it, you're ready for a vacation. But now it's a pile of on the floor. Now we get together and thank God for my kids. They helped me build it. It's a great experience, beautiful memories. We build the sukkah. Okay. We build the sukkah, and there's always a piece that's missing. So there's like a screw that you don't know where that screw is. And you rent to Home Depot once. You make best friends with people at Home Depot now because they'll know you. You become this. Okay. So you build the sukkah, and then you got the little pricks in the fingers because of all the palm fronds and the bamboos. Okay, we put it up. You're exhausted. Meanwhile, you still have to get the Lulav and esrog. So we got our sukkah up Sunday. Sunday we got the Lulav. We're ahead of the game, right? Sunday, because there was a hurricane last week. Don't forget. Thank God we didn't build the sukkah before the hurricane. There would have been an extra work taking it down, putting it back up again. Right. So we built the sukkah, and now I had to go get the Lulav and esrog. Schlepped down to Miami last night. The Uber wasn't arriving at I don't know where, midnight. So I decided I'm just gonna go for it. 1 a.m. I head over to all the way down to Aventura, find the place with my son here. We find the place, we get something to eat. I don't know, by the time we got home, it was exhausting. Now don't forget, we have to put together 50 sets of Lulav and esrogs. They were ordered for the congregation. Now we have the materials. Okay, great. But now we gotta assemble them. So it's gonna be a whole day operation now. And we gotta worry about the shul sukkah. We gotta do the lighting, decorations, whatever. Okay, it's a whole experience. By the time you walk into the Festival of Sukkot, you're farmatert. You know what farmatert is? You feel like a shmata. You feel like completely
wiped out.
This is your Jackie Mason routine.
Yes, I do. He's working on it.
Yeah. So Hineni, I'm here, and I wanted to share with you today some wisdom about the 4 species, because thank God for wisdom. Thank God for Torah wisdom. Because if not for Torah wisdom, we'd just be a bunch of simpletons. But it's the Torah wisdom that God has shared with us, His wisdom, that has allowed us to entirely reinvent ourselves. Let's discuss this idea. And we're celebrating today, commemorating the yahrzeit of Michael Kalla. He is the son of Corey. And his name is Yitzchak Moshe ben Yosef Zev. Commemorating his neshama, we're also commemorating today the completion of a Torah study cycle of Tanya by one of our members. Chuck just completed the Tanya, and this is very, very special, very, very beautiful to be able to. Am I in the wrong place? Can you see this online?
Thank you.
Let's see. I hope I'm in the right place. Anyways, I think I am. So, when it comes to the 4 species, what?
You're in your Chabad. It's okay. You're in the right Chabad.
When it comes to the 4 species of Sukkot, we have a Lulav and an esrog and a myrtle and a willow. These 4 species are fundamental to the holiday of Sukkot. Fundamental, right? To observe this holiday, it's not only by building and living in a sukkah for 7-8 days, but it's actually you have to bless these 4 species. Now, it's a big misconception. You're not supposed to shake them. You're not supposed to shake the 4 species. If you do, you will more than likely render them invalid, no longer kosher. I always say you have to treat them like a baby. What does that mean, to treat them like a baby? Whatever you want to do to a baby, you wouldn't do to the 4 species. You don't shake him, God forbid. You sway them sideways. Now, what do these 4 species represent? Why do we bring 4 species together? There's the palm branch, which is from a palm tree. There's the willow. There's the myrtle. And then there is the citron. These 4 species represent 4 different kinds of Jews. This is what the Medrash tells us. The 4 kinds of Jews are as follows. The Medrash tells us that each one of these 4 species has a different characteristic in terms of flavor and smell. So, for example, the citron has a beautiful flavor, smell and a flavor. The willow has neither. No flavor, no smell. The myrtle has only smell, no flavor. And the date palm has flavor but no smell. So you see, they each have one of those characteristics, from both in the citron to neither in the myrtle, and neither in the willow, and only one in the date and the myrtle. Thank you. Representing 4 different kinds of Jews, because taste, the word taste in Hebrew, is the same word as logic. Tam. When you say that food has tam or no tam, it means taste, but tam also means a reason. Matam, what's the reason? Right? So when you talk about taste, you're talking about wisdom. When you're talking about flavor, the Zohar connects flavor with mitzvahs. Therefore, the 4 species represent 4 kinds of Jews. The etrog, which has the flavor and the smell, represents the Jew that has both wisdom as well as mitzvahs. Now, it's not only good deeds. We're not talking about good deeds, that you're helping old ladies cross the street, that you're marching with Black Lives Matter, that you are, that you're doing tikkun olam initiatives, cleaning up the streets. That's not a mitzvah. Might be a good deed, but it's not a mitzvah. There are 620 mitzvahs in the Torah. 620 mitzvahs, 613 of them are biblical, 7 of them are of rabbinical origin, 620 mitzvahs, which means wearing a 4-cornered garment with tassels on it, that's a mitzvah. Helping an old lady cross the street, I guess that is a mitzvah. But, not being cruel to animals is also a mitzvah, right? But it's not that anything which is considered tikkun olam, that's not considered a mitzvah. Whatever God commands us to do, that's a mitzvah, right? Now, the citron Jew represents the Jew that has both Torah wisdom as well as wisdom and mitzvahs, right? The Lulav Jew is the one who has wisdom but no mitzvahs. This is the Jew that doesn't lay tefillin. He doesn't wear tzitzis. He doesn't keep Shabbos. He doesn't keep kosher, but he learns wisdom. Now, on a more sensitive level, he does do the mitzvahs, but where is his primary concern? Where's his primary focus is on wisdom. So a Jew should be laying tefillin, a Jew should be keeping Shabbos, but his primary focus is on wisdom of Torah. That's why it's called a date palm, a lulav. Then you got the myrtle. The myrtle, what is a myrtle? This is the Jew that doesn't have any wisdom. This is your average American Jew that doesn't know anything about Torah. Like, you ask them the parsha of the week. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't really engage in Torah wisdom. But they have good deeds. They give tzedakah. They might lay tefillin once in a while. They might keep a little kosher. They might keep a little Shabbos. They might wear a little yarmulke. They do their mitzvahs, right? And finally, you have the Jew that's the willow that has no Torah, no mitzvahs. When it comes to the festival of Sukkot is the festival which is a great unifier. We come together inside of a sukkah. A sukkah is a mitzvah that is a collective. Every other mitzvah that we really do is individual mitzvahs. You lay tefillin for yourself. You don't lay tefillin for someone else. You give tzedakah. Tzedakah is much more about the giver than it is about the receiver. When you're giving tzedakah, fine, there's a recipient, good. But really, the fact that you're giving tzedakah is you're elevating the souls of the deceased. When we do it at Yizkor, you're redeeming your own soul. When we say usashuvo, usafilo, tzedakah, repentance, prayer, and charity, transform the evil decree. What you're doing is that you're actually benefiting your own spirituality far, far more than the recipient is receiving, because every mitzvah is really a personal mitzvah. I'm wearing tzitzis. It's got nothing to do with you wearing tzitzis. But when it comes to the mitzvah of the sukkah is a mitzvah that we all do collectively. We're all in the same sukkah together. It's a unifying mitzvah. It's a mitzvah which is really about the Jewish people standing together. And that's why on the festival of Sukkot, we do the 4 species, which is a mitzvah that requires us to have all 4 Jews bound together as one. And what happens if you're missing one of the kinds of Jews? What happens if you say, well, that Jew I have no use for?
You're incomplete.
What happens if you say, well, that Jew, that Jew is voting for the devil incarnate? That Jew I have no space for in my people. Comes the 4 species of Sukkot and says, oh no, if you're missing one Jew, you cannot fulfill the mitzvah. If one Jew is missing from your union, you've done nothing. You can't take 4 citrons, 4 estrogens and do the mitzvah. 4 perfect Jews, in your opinion. You can't do that. You got to take one of each kind of Jew, because collectively we make up the whole. We make up the union.
So do you do a cross-examination of them before they
No.
start the sukkah to find out which one they are?
We accept every Jew as they are.
Okay. Fine.
As they are.
Just
We
as
say,
long
as they are.
you're my brother? Welcome. That's it.
Okay.
That's it. No questions asked.
Okay.
Even if I disagree with you, even if I don't like what you chose to wear, even if I don't like what you chose to say, even if I don't like what you chose to believe, you're still my brother. It's the great unifier. It's not about condoning values. It's about fundamental union. Now, when it comes to these 4 mitzvahs, the Torah tells us, we know a basic fundamental principle in Jewish spirituality is that this physical world is a manifestation, a mirror reflection of the spiritual truths above. And therefore, when we unite the 4 species down here below, this is because the 4 species are truly united up above. But even the physical attributes of the 4 species down below are manifestations of their status up above. Who is the most important of the 4 species? The etrog, you would think. Well, guess what? The etrog's a shorty.
Go figure.
Go figure. Who is the most dominant of the 4 species?
Lulav.
The Lulav. The Lulav towers like a skyscraper above the others. The Lulav. What's up with the Lulav? Why is the Lulav different to the other species? Why is it that the Lulav towers above them? It's obviously because in heaven, the Lulav spiritually manifests a more intense power. What's special about the Lulav? There's a beautiful story in the Talmud, very, very strange story in the Talmud, of Rabbi Yeshua, who was riding on his horse and he sees a Jew more ugly than he's ever seen before. You ever seen somebody like this? I mean, seriously. Not everything that you think you have to say, right? He sees a Jew that is more ugly than he's ever seen before. So what does he do? He goes right over to him and he says, "Why are you so ugly?" Can you imagine?
That's chutzpah.
Yeah, it was pretty chutzpah, right? So the guy says to him, "Don't tell me. Tell the craftsman who made me." Ouch. And the guy took offense. The guy takes offense. Not surprising, right? So now Rabbi Yeshua says to him, "I'm sorry." The guy says, "Too late. Who are you?" So he tells him his name. And he says, "May then be no more like you in Israel." So Rabbi Yeshua doesn't know what to do. So they kind of like walking towards wherever they're going. And Rabbi Yeshua is on the way to a certain town, where this town, the people are coming out to greet the rabbi, the great rabbi. So this guy goes out behind them and he says to the people, "If this is the guy that you're going to greet, then what are you doing?" Eventually, he forgives the rabbi on condition that Rabbi Yeshua will never do it again to anybody else. Now, that's a very strange story in the Talmud. Like, it's one thing if it happened, but it's another thing to like record it for posterity in the Talmud. Why would we want to do this? The Rebbe gives us a very beautiful explanation. The Rebbe explains that Rabbi Yeshua looked at this physically ugly person and he understood that he was a manifestation of his spiritual status. He understood that this was a particularly ugly individual in his spiritual status. I know, yes, double take, hey? Interesting. Ain't that interesting? You don't like that? Well, okay, don't buy it.
I'm not buying it. It's surprising.
It's eyebrow raising, right? Yeah. So he understood that the physical ugliness of this person was a manifestation of his spiritual ugliness, that he was in a very low spiritual state. And that's why, what do you do when somebody is, what do you do with a child who is just unresponsive to discipline? What do you do with a child that is just, what's the word, dismissive and obnoxious? How do you deal with it? What would you do? Sometimes you got to give a patch upon him. Sometimes you got to give a patch upon him and wake him up, shake him out of his apathy, right?
Or give him more love.
Give him more love. Okay, well, that's new age. But
That's very woke.
think about what happens to the Jewish people in history. David, think about what happens to the Jewish history. What happens whenever the Jewish people become apathetic and gluttonous and indulgent and indifferent to God? Then God gives us a big patch.
That's different than a child.
I don't think it's different.
We're God's
I don't think it's different than a child. We're God's children. And God will give us a war. God will give us on October 7th. He'll give us something like that. And what happens to the Jewish people? Think about that for a second. Suddenly they get a patch so bad that they unify, that they wake up. They come home.
They wake up. You give your children a patch and cookie.
I go on. I once go on. I go on. And I still feel it till today.
Wait, you got one?
I got one, yeah.
No, I remember you got one. You told that story.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not the question.
Changed my life.
I understand. My question is, do you
Give one.
I've got great kids. I got great kids.
They don't know you have to answer it. It's your lawyer.
Yeah, my lawyer tells me to plead the
That's
fifth.
privilege.
I'm-
That's privilege.
I'm pleading the fifth.
I'm not forming.
Okay. So here's what happens. Let me finish the point. So here's what happens. So what does Rabbi Yeshua do when he sees a Jew like this? He realizes that the only way to break through to him is by doing something so dramatic that it's going to get his attention. So he tries to break him. How does he try to break him? By saying something so sharp, so acerbic, that it's going to shake him out of his slumber. And guess what happens? He says, why are you so ugly? Guess what happens? He's successful. The guy says, don't tell me, tell my maker. Oh, so you are a believer. Ah, very nice. In other words, he realizes they were successful. He got what he prayed for, a little too successful, right? So now he feels badly because he used an elephant gun to shoot a daffodil. You know what I mean? He caused a little too much collateral damage. So now he apologizes. And the guy says to him, look, I'll forgive you on condition that you don't do it again. Like, be careful with bringing out the big guns, right? Back to the four species. When you see that the four species have their physical attributes, and they're different, then that is a manifestation of what's going on up above. So when the Lulav is towering above the other three species, the reason is because it is more important to them. But what do you think is special about the Lulav? I mean, you just finished the Tanya. The Lulav is the wisdom Jew, as opposed to the good deeds Jew. Wouldn't you think that the good deeds Jew is more important than all the rest? He was a good person, Rabbi. How often have you heard that? When do you say to somebody, he was an academic? They tell the story of a rabbi and a priest and an imam who are discussing what they once said at the eulogies. So the priest says, I would like them to say about me that the priest was a scholar. He was an academic. He was a scholar. He was well versed in the Word of God in the book. Okay. The Imam says, I wanted to say my eulogy. I wanted to point at my coffin. I wanted to say, he was a kind man. He was good to others. And the rabbi says that my eulogy, I wanted to point at the coffin and say, look, he's alive. He's moving. So
We're coming to these. We
what's-
already know what we're trying to
What's
do.
going on over here? What's going on over here where we say suddenly that the Lulav is towering high above all the rest? Why is this happening? That the Lulav is so much higher than everybody else. What's going on over here? Answers the Rebbe as follows. He says that there is a profound benefit, a profound advantage to the wisdom of Torah over good deeds. And what is that profound advantage? When it comes to why do we do mitzvahs and why do we do Torah? What's the reason that we do these things? Why do we study Torah?
Because God says so.
We study Torah because God says so. Why do you study Torah?
To have a better relationship, get closer.
You sort of getting to know the lay of the land, right? You get to know the rules of engagement, sort of thing, right? And he says it differently. He says you're doing it because God says so. I'm gonna tell it to you even a different way. So why do we do mitzvahs? What does a mitzvah mean? What is a mitzvah? What does the word mitzvah mean? Mitzvah means a commandment. Mitzvah might also mean a good deed.
And getting close.
Mitzvah means an embrace. It means an intimacy. Mitzvah means connection, a hug. That's what the word mitzvah means. When you do a mitzvah, you're embracing God, right? For example, if you ask me to do something for you, I'm establishing some sort of a connection. If somebody I never met before calls me up and says, Rabbi, could you do this for me? Then what's going to happen? I'm going to form a connection with this person through the act, right? Now, every time we do a mitzvah, we mortal beings are connecting with the infinite, immortal, almighty God. That's quite an amazing achievement. Anytime you can do a mitzvah, the 620 mitzvahs are extraordinary opportunities to be able to break free from our dimension, to break the glass ceiling and connect to the divine. It's amazing. So you should never look at a mitzvah as a drag, as a problem, as like a headache. You should look at a mitzvah as an opportunity, right? Think of things that you do that your wife could appreciate, right? Imagine you can make a list of 12 things that you could do that your wife would really, really, really appreciate, right? So what happens? You look at those 12 things. It's headaches. Oh my God, it's that time of year again. I got an anniversary. I got to get flowers. Or you say, wow, this is amazing. I have something which I can do to make my wife closer. That's amazing. I love it. That's how we look at a mitzvah. We have an opportunity to connect. So as beautiful as the mitzvah connection is, Torah is even more, much, much more than a mitzvah. Because what happens when you do a mitzvah? When you do a mitzvah, you're connecting with God in a way that we can understand. Okay, so me and so two separate beings are now forming a bridge between them. But when you're studying Torah, you're studying divine wisdom. This is not just learning about God. You're learning God's wisdom. That's amazing to be able to look. Now, God and his wisdom are one. That's what the Zohar tells us. Who? V'chachmasei echad. God and his wisdom are one. More than that, the first word of the Ten Commandments is an Egyptian word, Anochi. Anochi, I am God, you God, right? So the word I is an acronym for 4 words. Ano, nafshi, ksavis, yehavis. I, my essence in my writings have infused. So God has infused his essence inside of his writings. That's what he's done. God has infused his essence inside of his writings. So now what's happening is you're not just getting God's warmth when you do a mitzvah. When you learn Torah, you're actually connecting with God's essence. So to give an example, if you buy flowers for your wife, that's very nice. If you buy a diamond ring for your wife, that's very nice. If you take her on a vacation, whoa. But are you connecting with her essence? I don't think so. It's you and her connecting. Very nice. You're building a bridge. But when you're studying the Torah, you're studying God's essence. And where does that God's essence go? God and his essence are one. Where does it go? It goes into my brain. When it goes into my brain, you can't even differentiate or discern between my wisdom and the wisdom which is now being ingested within me, because I and the wisdom are inseparable. So the intimacy formed through studying God's wisdom is a greater form of intimacy than we are able to form on any other plane of engagement. And that's the reason why the Lulav towers up above the other 3 species. Because when it comes to the purpose of a mitzvah, which is to connect intimately with God, the other 3 species are fantastic. You're doing it through good deeds, whatever. You're doing it whatever you can. But when you're connecting to God through the study of Torah, this is sensational. Think about this. No other creation on earth has been granted the access code to be able to connect with his maker on this level. First of all, we spoke just yesterday, I think, that no other creature is able to communicate with God. You can't even, no other species can pray, can talk to God. Prayer is one of the mitzvahs, right? Prayer is one of the mitzvahs. When I talk to my wife, I'm connecting to my wife. But when I don't know if you even have a metaphor for this in marriage. I don't know. I mean, the only thing is we're the most intimate of unions.
You said it in the past. God speaks to us through the Torah. We talk to him through the prayer. He speaks to us.
When we pray, we're speaking to God. When we're studying Torah, God is speaking to us. Okay, fine. But it's even more than that, Andy. It's even more. It's even more, because when you're studying Torah, then Torah becomes a part of you. You know, Tanya gives us an example of clothing and food. Tanya chapter 5. Remember?
Quote.
You know, I want to tell you, when I got my driver's license in South Africa, I come home proud as a peacock, and I said to my father, "Okay, Abba, I need the car keys. I'm going out." And my father looks at me and says, "Oh no!" He says, "Oh no!" I'm like, "What do you mean? I should pass my license." He says, "Dovid, the day you get your license, that's the day you start learning how to drive." Right?
Has he learned yet?
So here's what I say to you, Reb Chuck. The day you finish the Tanya, now you're ready to start learning. Now that you've, done your initiation, now you're ready to start learning. Don't give me any graduation here. You know what I mean? Graduating level 0. Okay. Level 1. Okay. We're good. But now we're ready to really get this party started. You see what I'm saying? So Tanya, commencement, right? Commencement address. Very good. So comes the Tanya chapter 5. And I want you to be able to quote the Tanya like this, my friends. Seriously, I want you to tell me, what does 31? What does Tanya chapter 31 say? What's the difference between chapter 33 and 34? Give me a little. Okay, so comes. We had a teacher like this in our rabbinical. What's it called? Rabbinical what's it called? Degree. You know, in Australia, when I got my rabbinical degree, ordination, right? The rabbi there, we give us very simple tests. You'd have you'd study a section for 3 months, 14 hours a day. And he'd give us a test with 7 questions. Right? He'd say question like, how many times does this word appear in the curriculum? You know what I mean? Those kind of questions. He would say, what is the difference between all of those times that this concept appears? Tell me all the times that Rabbi Yehuda states an opinion. And are those positions consistent? Why or why not? So those are very basic questions, but unless you absolutely know your stuff, not just forward, but backwards and forwards again, there's no way you're going to be able to answer these questions, right? He would always say to us, and this is something which made a big difference in my life. He says, you don't understand something until you can recite it backwards. Anytime I do a sermon, I'll take a few minutes beforehand to review it backwards. To go from the destination, like you do a maze, you know how you do those mazes. You start at the end point, and then you find your way at the beginning. Now it's easy, right? But when you do a develop an idea, unless you know exactly where you're going and how you're going to get there, nobody else is going to understand what you're talking about. Right. So Tanya comes back and tells us like this. Here's what Tanya tells us. Tanya says the difference between clothing and food. Clothing is very important. It's very important when you wear clothing. It's a suit, it's a tie, it's a hat, it's a shoe, it's whatever. Very important, and it's a custom fit. You know, you can't wear a woman's clothing, you can't wear somebody else's clothing, it's got to be your own clothing, very nice. But you can't compare the connection I have with my clothing to the connection I have with my food. The food becomes one with me, the clothing is just on me. That's the difference between mitzvahs and Torah, between the Lulav and the other species. When it comes to other connections with God, the other connections with God, this is great. Me, I, separate entity, I'm connecting with God. But when I'm studying Torah, what I'm doing is I am putting infinity, God's almighty essence, inside of myself like food. And that's why the Lulav towers up above the other 4 species. And this is why, my friends, I'm just going to wrap it up by saying this. Thank you. Attack of the windmills. I understand what you're describing. This is a very deep exercise. Good. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. So just to apply this on a practical level. The Torah tells us that if you want to win a war, V'nosati shalim ba'aretz. Yeah, strike him first, that's for sure. But if you want to win a war, V'nosati shalom ba'aretz. What's it going to take to have peace in the land? This is a direct quote from the Bible. The very end of the book of Leviticus, the beginning of the last portion of the book of Leviticus. If you toil in the study of my Torah, I will give you peace in the land. Why is that necessary? I mean, seriously. You want to win a war, send a missile, right? Send an F-16 fighter jet. What are you trying to tell me? You're going to sit and study Torah? You're studying the Tanya here, our studying here on YouTube, Worldwide Wisdom. This is going to win the war in Israel. Rabbi, seriously, pull it together, man. Who are we kidding? But the answer is like this. You want to win a war as any other nationality wins a war, like the Greeks or like the Koreans or like the Chinese. Fine, send your F-16 fighter jets and your tanks and your armies. Very good. But if you want to bring God to the battlefield, and you want to win war that are absolutely disproportionate, you want to be able to win against all odds. I mean, think about the War of Independence, 1948, when Israel was outnumbered 40,000 to 1. I mean, that's pretty intense. 40,000 to 1, right? I mean, this is like a fledgling Holocaust survivor ragtag group of warriors fighting against 7 Arab armies. This is pretty intense. And pretty much every other war, the Pentagon and the Department of Defense has said multiple times that they study every war in history, but the wars that they don't study are the wars of Israel. Why do they not study the wars of Israel? Because they defy rhyme and reason. They don't make sense. It makes no sense that Israel has experienced over 26,000 rockets fired on it in the past 12 months, and almost very few casualties. Remember the catastrophe at Majal Shams when those 12 kids were killed in the soccer field? These ballistic missiles are capable of killing each one 10,000 people. It's incredibly underwhelming. The war front in Israel it defies rhyme and reason. You want to win a battle against all odds, you're going to have to bring God to the battlefield. How do you do that? You got to be one with God. How do you be one with God? Toil in the study of Torah. It's not just a casual read of the study of Torah. It's not just a armchair, lazy boy, relaxed reading when I'm in the mood. This is something which you have to toil. And you know how we study like this? Watch me. This is how we study. We shuckle. Why do we shuckle? Because my body is not even in the mood, and I'm trying to sort of get into that cadence, into that rhythm, to force myself to study, to do this for an hour, to do this for 3 hours. I came home last night, 1:30 in the morning. I was exhausted, but I had to do my daily Torah study. I had to finish. I went over till 2 o'clock in the morning. I needed to finish whatever my Torah obligations are every single day, because I could not go to sleep before finishing it. This is what I mean by toil. Toil means out of your comfort zone. Toil means when you're not in the mood. Toil means more than you're comfortable with. And that's what you did here, Chuck. You took on Torah study that you're not comfortable with. This is like, Chuck will give me like a little diary, like a little updates, about how he's feeling through the chapters. And he says, whoa, this is like over my head, man. It's like, and I would encourage him forward, because you're toiling, you're forcing yourself to do something which is outside of your comfort zone. You're raising the bar. You're not just reading stuff which is comfortable, which I'm interested in. No, I'm doing something, whatever God wants to say, that's what I want to hear, right? What's the Torah portion this week? Good, bad, or ugly? I want to take it in. Give it to me, right? And you're taking it in. This is toil and study of Torah. Toil and study of Torah means to go over and do it again. And do it again and again and again and again for the rest of your life. And even if you're 97 years old, and Rabbi, what am I going to do with this wisdom? When am I ever going to use it? I'm 97 years old. That's not the purpose of why we're studying Torah. We're studying Torah not because one day you're going to get a job somewhere and someone's going to hire you for something. You're studying the Torah because you're becoming one with God. You're becoming intimate with God. You're towering like a skyscraper, like a Lulav, to be able to connect it on a very practical level. This is what our people need. I'm going to say something controversial. You're not going to like this, folks, but I'm going to leave you with a little bombshell here, okay? This is the reason why the yeshiva students need to stay in yeshiva in Israel. This is the reason. This is exactly the reason. A gape. Okay, so the reason is not because they're shirking, military duty. That is the approach of the atheist, of the non-believer, or the man of weak faith and weak knees. The Torah study. Fair enough, you're entitled. Fair enough. I told you you're not going to like it. So, okay, fair enough. I'm going to keep on arguing my point here for a moment. My point is that if you're going to win a battle, if we are Israelis, then absolutely everybody has to go to the war. Absolutely. But we're not Israelis, we're Jews. We're the chosen people. We're the people of God. And God has told us countless times in the Torah, I want to fight your battles if you invite me in. How do you invite me in? Well, the way to do that is obviously by toiling in the study of Torah. It's pretty explicit. If you want peace in the land, this is how you do it. So obviously to win a war, please don't misunderstand me. Obviously you need an army. Obviously you need training, and you need the best equipment and the best fighter jets and the best ability to refuel midair and the most courageous soldiers and the best equipment and the best upgrade and all that stuff. Yes. And intelligence, all that stuff. But in addition to that, there's another department which is necessary. Just like you wouldn't think of running an army without an intelligence unit. We don't do intelligence. That'd be absurd. Of course you need intelligence. Intelligence soldiers, they don't know even how to shoot a rifle. They're useless. Would you say that about intelligence units in the army? Of course not. Of course not, because by those girls sitting behind the screens and studying every move of Bashar Assad and knowing what he's going to eat for dinner next Tuesday night, that is helping the whole country know exactly how to plan the military duty. And just like in an engine of a car, every piece of the engine is critically important. So too in an army. You can't have everybody doing infantry or everybody doing Air Force or everybody doing Navy. No, we need some in the Navy, some in the infantry, some in the tanks, some in this, some in that, some in intelligence, and some in the spiritual core. We Jews in America do not have the ability to pick up a gun. We cannot pick up a gun. A lot of people tell me, Rabbi, I want to get up. I want to go. This guy's 84 years old. He tells me he wants to go to volunteer in the Air Force. I'm like, listen, the Air Force does not need you. And trust me, the Air Force does not want you. Okay? What you do need to do is to send an F-16 fighter jet from Palm Beach Gardens or wherever you are right now. And the way you do it is toil in the study of Torah. Because by sitting over here and arguing and telling me it's not going to work, you're certainly not helping the battlefield. But when you have the courage to say, you know what? Maybe the rabbi's got a point. That's not me, by the way. I didn't make this up. It says it straight in the good book over here, in the Bible, right? Shh. It says it in the good book. It says it in the Bible, right? So when it comes to actually doing stuff, you want to win this war? Here's how you do it. You can be right here in Mirasol, right here in Franklin's Creek. And what do? You say, I'm going to take Torah study to the next level, like you did. I'm going to take Torah study to the next level. And by the way, everybody around this table has reinvented themselves because 5 years ago or 3 years ago, you were not doing this at 9 o'clock in the morning, okay? You were doing something else, not this, okay? So you've amazingly reinvented yourself. And to my friends here on YouTube as well, you're doing the same thing. You've reinvented yourself. You're studying with me. It's amazing. I'm honored to be your rabbi. I'm honored to be your teacher. But if we're going to win this war, we've got to be a Lulav. We've got to be able to bring God to the battlefield. And the same thing goes to your personal life as well. There's a friend of mine, a rabbi in Odessa. Can you imagine being a rabbi in Odessa, Ukraine? I mean, he's a rabbi during a war. It's crazy. He tells me anytime he has financial difficulties, you know what he does? This sounds crazy, but this is what he does. Anytime there's financial difficulties, there's not exactly ability to fundraise from people in Odessa, right? So he says, anytime there's a problem, he goes into a private room and he studies like his life depends on it. Have you ever read a book like your life depended on it? Interesting, right? That's how we read the Torah. Think about that for a second. It's an interesting question to ponder. When you study the Torah like your life depends on it, that's toiling, right? I need to understand every word, every letter, every detail. It's got to make sense to me, right? And what he does is he'll do that for 2-3 hours. And then he tells me the miracles begin to flow. You want to bring God into your life. You want to bring God into your family. You want to bring God into your marriage. You want to bring God into your business. You want to bring God into your people, into your nation, into Israel, into your elections. Study Torah like a Lulav. Toil in the study of Torah, and you will experience miracles beyond your dreams and expectations. Quick comment over here. I've studied Israel's physical wars as well as the battles in the Torah. So I hate war. This is so interesting, Rabbi. Thank you. Good stuff. You have to learn to listen to your rabbi first before you judge. Okay, thank you. All glory goes to Hashem. If you look at the topographic maps, the world is marked with language. You can read it. Okay, good. I think I've answered all the questions. Again, elevation of the soul today to Corey Nadel's son, Michael, on the occasion of his 5th yard site. Yitzchak Moshe ben Yosef Zev, may his soul be elevated in Gan Eden in the merit of today's Torah study. Chuck, onward and upward with the study of Torah. All of us, you're inspired by your tremendous commitment to the study of Torah. He just finished the book of Tanya, folks, and you can study Tanya as well with me on YouTube right here. Go to youtube.com/Jewish Gardens and click on the Tanya playlist, TANYA, the Tanya playlist. You can find the shortcut to it if you want. It's at jewishgardens.com/soul. That's jewishgardens.com/soul. You have all, how many classes? 98?
No,
How many classes is it?
Almost 60.
Almost 60 classes.
Some
Not too bad.
chapters you have 2 or 3
Not too bad.
classes.
You can study the Tanya with me over there on jewishgardens.com/soul. You too can do something that you've never done before by bringing Torah to a whole new level and sending blessings to Israel. Because again, whether you agree with me or not about the yeshivas, whether you agree with me or not, certainly for us Jews in America, we're not helping. And you want to send donations? Send donations. Absolutely. We're so proud of the 40, 50 drones that we've already sent to Israel. We're so proud. But it doesn't end with writing a check. Checks help. Fantastic. But now we got to do something really significant. And that happens through the study of Torah. Not everybody needs to go to every unit in the army. There needs to be a spiritual core as well. Am Yisrael Chai. Thank you, folks. Take care.
Good. Keep going.
Sorry for my delay.